Twitter, Netflix, Adobe, LinkedIn, Dropbox, so some pretty big names. That said, we believe we're just at the beginning of the journey. It's been 6 years soon. Actually, on Friday we have our birthday party. But we really think this is just a starting place for us, ground zero. We want to become the undisputed #1 in the world at what we do, and there's definitely a lot to do to get there. And most importantly, we're still very far from reaching or fulfilling our mission, which is that of building possibly the most legendary company ever. We know this is borderline impossible. We're not naive or stupid, but we like to have that very ambitious goal ahead of us to really get up in the morning and think, what can we do to do 10 times as much as we've done so far. Really believe in aiming high, and that really pushes you to exceed your limits much more than thinking incremental. For us, building a great company means 3 things. Number 1 is we want to create fantastic jobs that really help people be happy and grow and improve as professionals and human beings. And that's a big way you can help society be better. Number 2, we want our products to be really high quality and really dominate the market. And 3, and this is the hardest one to plan for, but no excuses, we're going to try as hard as we can. We want to bring to the market at some point a truly revolutionary product, something that really moves the needle for a class of customers. And we haven't done that yet, we are well aware, but we hope that we can ask a bit of luck and hopefully a tiny bit of talent as well, we'll be able to achieve that too at some point. A few of you may know that the company was founded in Denmark, in Copenhagen actually, 6 years ago, but we moved it to Italy soon after. It was late 2014, early 2015. And the reason why we did that is that we thought, if we are to move towards that goal, building such an amazing company, at the time we had pretty much nothing in our hands, then doing it from Italy, which was and still is, in our opinion, a country with exceptional potential compared to what's being expressed already in terms of talent, especially innovation. If we could do it from here, if we could prove that you can build a prestigious top class company in the tech field, a company that's a market leader internationally and admired all over the world, including the US and China, for what it does, then we could possibly perhaps ignite a little revolution in our country, really show that you can do it if you set your mind to it, if you work hard for a long time at it. And so we decided to move it against everyone's advice, and we've been here ever since. I'm very happy to be here, and we intend to continue investing in Italy from Milan, which is where we have our headquarters at the moment. So quickly to wrap it up, our areas of focus when it comes to maximizing our chances of achieving that very difficult mission that I was describing are technology, number 1. We are geeks, ultimately, most of us. Roughly half the team is made up of software engineers, or computer scientists, or mathematicians, or physicists. And we have invested since the beginning very aggressively in research and development to build our own technologies and in general know-how. There's a lot going on behind the scenes for our apps that you won't imagine, from data science to monetization, marketing. All of that is quite scientific at DANIELE and very sophisticated and done on a very large scale. And there's plenty to improve, but definitely we have made major strides over the years, and that's one of the reasons in technology why we have been able to succeed where the vast majority of other companies have not. And the second big obsession we have is people. We have invested as much as we have been able to assemble the best team possible. Lots of efforts in recruiting, and we've been very selective. It's been a lot of work for everyone involved, including the candidates that have gone through the process, but we believe our team to be fantastic, world-class, and also a team of people that are not only good at what they do, but also very nice individuals with whom it's nice to spend time, which is very important if you are to spend a lot of time at work. But also we really try hard to create a work environment that's truly exceptional, where you really want to stay a long time and that you find to be highly satisfying and stimulating and safe. In that respect, we've been recently recognized as the best medium-sized company Place to Work, which is an American institution rewarding, evaluating companies for the quality of the jobs they create and scoring them on that measure. And also we are top 15 in Europe this year. So very proud of that. And if you want to learn more about how working at Bending Spoons is also what I do when I'm depressed. Well, we got some good reviews, and that's definitely more unbiased than I can ever be, although I try to be as objective as I could, but I clearly love the company very much. So that's us. We always, look forward to do more and do better, get better, and we look for more people that want to join our journey, that are not afraid by a challenge. So if you're interested, reach out. We're here tonight, and also you'll find a lot of information on our website. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Let's see if this works. Yeah, a couple of slides before starting. So, actually, looking for the introduction of Bending Spoons. Thank you very much for being here tonight and for sponsoring the event. Very appreciated. It was a super cool company. And also at the same time, sorry for all this mess. It's actually an unprecedented event of being in this new space for us as well. As you noticed, we're not an Impact Hub, but we want to say a big thank you to them. We're gonna miss you. It's gonna be we're gonna miss you. Very good with emotions. You're growing as a yeah, we don't know where we're gonna end. We are discussing with a bunch of players around Trentino, and we want to keep the same format, like the same Speck&Tech vibe, but probably even in a cooler location. We can still say nothing, but I would really like to. But stay tuned. The one in July might be even in a new place. So let's hope. At the same time, our old friends, Belka Julius company. We are actually hiring. You can check it out on our website, which is www.bacondigital.com. We are looking for a designer right now, so like an actual designer who do digital stuff, that kind of thing with computers. So jokes aside, if you're interested in that, just click on it and see what we are looking for, because we are super interested right now. And also Francesco's company. Exactly. No, we are also looking for people. So anyone that is interested in having their hands dirty, just come and talk to us. There's a couple of us here on the night. Daniele always helping us with the Contour Cloud, and they are also hiring. Yeah. And Diginate, maybe you noticed, but they have rebranded them recently. And look at that. These were the previous 4 editions of the stickers. If you go there at our desk, you can find the 5th edition of the stickers of Speck&Tech. Also, try not to miss it. Yeah, you can find all the issues on our website as always. You can also suggest us to give a talk or to be the sponsor of the night, or you can find all the previous talks, who was the speaker, who was the talk about, the abstract, the contacts, and also who's hiring, and look if you might fit the role, for example. Stay tuned on our social, on the Telegram page, and final, we always are welcoming your donations, because we really need them to survive and to... Yeah, so if you are one of the top companies in Europe and you want to donate, or if you don't, and you just want to give some money to Speck&Tech to keep basically buying beers, you can go to the stand back there. Also, we have a little surprise, which will be in the next slide. No spoilers, sorry. Yeah, exactly. And in this one, if you can go there, we're also giving out JetBrains licenses and Flixbus coupons, so you can get 20% off on unlimited journeys on Flixbus if you're raising how much free stuff there. Yeah, and at the same time, there's this beautiful Sam wearing the new t-shirts of Speck&Tech, the 3rd edition. Be sure you're not gonna miss them. Hair is not included, sorry. Okay, I guess it's enough. As always, questions to slide.do/st32 or slide.do and insert the code st32. And I guess we're ready to start with the night with our Gabriele. Actually, 1 minute 22 and the game is starting. Right. So no pressure. Hi everyone. Hello everyone. Nice country. Let me grab my potenziamento.
Okay. Hello everyone, it's just 1 minute to the game, so just a quick introduction to who am I. So, hello, my name is Gabriele Platania. I'm a spooner since 2016, so it's been more than 3 years now. I am actually the backend developer at LiveQuiz, so if the game has some problems right now, you can blame me. I work with the green team, some of them are here, like Federico Simeonato, he's the product manager, and big video game nerd and all that jazz. So, I wanted to explain what is LiveQuiz, but I think it's best if we just play together. So, I'll just leave the stage for the game. Enjoy!
Qual è l'ingrediente principale del guacamole? Avocado. Lo sapete che il guacamole è una salsa di origine messicana a base di avocado, il cui uso risale ai tempi degli aztechi? Next question. Se volessi visitare il Louvre, in quale città mi dovrei recare? Parigi, Berlino o Oslo? Cloruro di sodio è il costituente principale di sale da cucina, soda caustica, cloroformio. Se Luigi Di Maio è il ministro del lavoro, chi è invece quello dello sviluppo economico? Chi scrisse la canzone Carlo Martello cantata da Fabrizio Del Re?
Qual è il cognome di Archie Harrison, figlio di Harry e Meghan? La risposta è Elton John. un giudice di The Voice. Vanno agli occhi, vede, Gigi Alessio, dopo la fai.
Last three questions. Actually, the price is 200 euros on an Amazon coupon, so it's for real. And then the next phase it's gonna be 1,500 euros. So you better check it out. I've never won. L'evento di visita di tecnologia prodotti locali sta svolgendo adesso. Last few questions. L'attore Michael Fassbender non ha mai interpretato Steve Jobs, Carl Gustav Jung, Stephen Hawking. Is there anyone who got all of them correct? Final question. Quale di questi paesi è comune non avere tende alle finestre? Olanda, Alaska, Russia. Got all of them right. Once again, girls win and boys. Annalisa. Well done, good job, good job. Well done. Alright, so we should let's go back to our main event, ready for the official talk. Okay. So, I guess you saw how the product works. Did you like the game?
game, so this video was useless. So I wanted to give you some numbers about LiveQuiz to understand how big it is. LiveQuiz is completely located in Italy, so the numbers are different from the numbers we can see usually in our apps, which are available worldwide, but they're still impressive nonetheless. So we have more than 5,000 users who download the app every day. The retention is actually pretty crazy because up to 25% of our users keep using the app after more than 5 weeks. We have given more than 100,000 euros. Actually, tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we will get to 150,000 euros in prizes. And on some days, we get more than 100,000 active users, depending on the price, of course. But so how do we do it? What are some best practices we want to keep in mind tech-wise to make the best apps possible? Server side, we want to always assume that the client is completely open source, that anyone can completely see our code and act through it. We always want to assume that everyone has full access to all data that is non-authenticated, and that every user is a super big megamind hacker that will do whatever it takes to destroy or ruin your app. Because people will actually do it. So, how does it relate to LiveQuiz? For example, if we want to make the game as fast and reliable as possible, it might seem like a good idea to download all the data about the game at the start. So we have a few minutes first, so we can download all of the questions and all of the answers, right? That might seem good because it allows you to skip through the game and have not much communication, but it's actually a terrible practice because it would allow any user who managed to crack the game or to print out the data inside the app, which will be able to always reliably win 100% of the time. So instead, what we do is that we feed data continuously to the app, and the app will show the data as soon as it can. For example, during this state, which is displayed when the game is displaying the question, the game itself, the app, doesn't know which one is the correct question. It will only know once it shows it. On the other hand, what are some best practices to develop the client? Some things that we found that hold true pretty much globally are that you never have to make a decision. Leave those decisions to the server. For example, we developed a brand new feature which is awesome and we want to use, so you don't actually hard code that feature on the client. What you want to do is to ask permission to the server to whether to use that new feature or not. This is because in extreme cases the brand new feature might have some game-breaking bug or something, so you want to always have the option to turn it off instantly from the server. And of course this includes using the least amount of logic possible client-wise. As I said, leave all of the possible decisions and put all of the logic into the server. And always assume that every user is as dumb as possible and does understand anything, and will always try to mess up by pressing the wrong buttons. So, for example, if you have some tooltips, some stuff with writings on it, the users will not read. They will just tap and compulsively on the buttons. On the other hand, an example of good UX is the one where you literally have no buttons besides the one you need. You cannot even close the game. You can do nothing but answer that question. And that helps because the users would probably quit the game and complain that they quit the game. So, how does it work? I wanted to get a bit technical and explain what lies behind and how the communication works. As I said, we want to continuously feed information to the app, and we do so through a WebSocket connection. And the app communicates with the server through some very simple REST API. And I want to show you how this relates to the principles we said before. The WebSocket connection will give at least 2 updates per second for each client. These updates typically involve what the status of the game is. For example, what we need to see, what the status of the game. The server might, at any time, choose to show a trivia rather than a regular question, or swap the phases of the game. This is because the client does absolutely nothing but do what the server is telling it to do. This allows to move all of the possible logic to the server and do weird stuff that the client isn't even programmed to do. But it will do it because all of the logic is server-side. And on the other hand, the REST calls the outbound connection on the client is very simple and will do basically nothing. There are two main calls that happen, which is a simple heartbeat, which is every user will send every few seconds to the server, say that it's looking at the game. And then there's the simple API to actually answer the questions. So again, this is very simple, and the most logic is delayed to the for the server to decide, and the client will do the least amount of possible. So this is the basic infrastructure. So we have the server, which will dictate how the game goes, and will communicate through a real-time database or whatever WebSocket connection you want to use. We even developed one in our own. And we tell the clients what to do. The clients will answer the server through REST APIs. Very simple, right? So, how would you write code that does the orchestra director here? How can you handle, for example, the game? The very first iteration that we wrote was something similar like this, similar to this. For every question we have, we broadcast the question. So we say what the text is, what the answer are, and then we do nothing until it's time to display an update, and then we display the updates. This is very simple, and it might look good enough, but we quickly found out that there's a problem here. What we want to do is to have resiliency through idempotency, which might sound like big buzzwords, but let's get to it. So what is resiliency? Resiliency is the ability of a system to withstand changes in its environment and keep working. So, for this algorithm that we just wrote, would the game continue if the servers reboot? Obviously no. If we reboot it, of course, the game will start over. And what if there's an error somewhere and it raises a connection error? What if it loses the connection to the database or something happens? We have basically zero resiliency. Any kind of exception will give your user technical problems. And idempotency is applying the same. It's a function. It's a property of a function that allows you to apply multiple times and always get the same result. So, for example, x equals 3 is idempotent and x plus plus is not. This is pretty easy. So, how did we combine this to make the previous algorithm resilient? We created a description of the game through a configuration which is written into the database. So we have a bunch of, and the timestamps actually dictate what the status of the game is supposed to be at every moment. So between the time in T0 and T1, for example, where now is, it's time to display the first question. So, with the resiliency, we obtain resiliency through idempotency by changing the algorithm that we showed before with the new one, which will do basically nothing except broadcasting continuously the state of the game at this current time. Now, if you think about it, what will happen here with this new algorithm if the server were to restart? If the restart happens between the time when there are no important updates, then the clients wouldn't probably even notice. And even if there's a connection error or some kind of error or specific, and the server is forced to do something, or a broadcast call fails for some reason, then obviously what happens is that the call is retried immediately, and this gives us an incredible amount of resiliency. Obviously, this cannot keep happening if the amount of downtime is bigger than the question itself, but of course we can do very little about that. And another technical challenge, first of all, I want to say, is that clear? Do you have any questions till here? Or we move on? Okay. Second technical challenge is, of course, the throughput. As you can guess, both these are throughput graphics, which are the number of API calls performed to the server. On the left, we have a regular application, which is internet intensive. You can imagine something like Instagram, where a user scrolls through a feed or puts some likes and stuff. And on the right, we have live quits. On live quits, we basically have zero throughput. We have no calls during the whole day, and then we have a single huge peak where everyone is connecting at the same time. This goes actually against all of the scalability principles, like auto-scaling, so it's not possible for us to use all of these technologies to help us in live quits. So, obviously, a single server cannot handle that much traffic, right? But I know we can add more servers. There are services like Roku, there's Google Cloud Engine, there's AWS, and there's a lot of services that can promise you infinite scalability. So we can just add more servers and get the job done. And actually not. An example I wanted to give you is the counter we have right there, which counts the number of users that are connected right now. So for example, let's imagine for simplicity that every single user is going to do an API call to increase that number by 1. And then we have our complete counter after 2 seconds or something. So even if we had one server for each and every client, at some point, all of the clients are going to try and increase that number. But this number is a variable that is sitting somewhere in the cloud, but it's still a piece of physical memory somewhere, right? So if every single client is trying to access that single piece of information at the same time, obviously this cannot go well. So what we did, obviously, is sharding. We separated users in several groups based on their IDs or something, or hash. And then we calculated those at the end. So when our server has displayed that number, it will take all of the partial counts, will sum them all up, and then compute it as a property. So we finally have our counter, and all users can quickly go and increase their own group. Okay, so we have the server, and it's reliable. Let's see something about the client. What are some technical challenges about the client? We wanted to have everyone be able to use our app, because it's not just an iOS app. We want everyone to be able to use it. We want also Android users. And we want to use the common code base, which is a classic problem that almost everyone here is facing. So we want to be quick, no duplicate code bases. We want to be smooth, so we don't want those solutions which are kind of hybrid, which give you a web UI, which is displayed. Of course, it's the same on iOS and Android, but it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel smooth. So that's what we want. And we found a compromise, and we ended up using Flutter. Flutter is a brand new technology which is being developed by Google. It actually came out just a couple of months ago, the first version is very recent, not like 3 months ago. But we started using it even when it was in beta. We completed our own version. And Flutter is very, very strong because it uses common layout rules for all displays. This means that you can actually bind the UI through links and describe. It's a declarative system which allows you to describe the UI of your app. And basically they rewrote the engine in both native, for both iOS and Android, so that they use the same rules, and you will never have a different result in Android than iOS. This is what makes it powerful. So, how do you make sure your app works? This is the basic approach that we use for our clients, not only for live quits, but we also use it for pretty much all of our apps. This is the basic React Redux approach. We have a single store which contains all of the information about our app. The store decides the UI, so it also contains information about what we're looking right now and what we want to do. and the users interact through the UI by launching actions. And these actions then can change the state, for example, describing what view we are going to see, how the animation is going to be, or what server call we are performing, and what the result is. And then we're going to save all this data to the store and update the UI. We actually ended up implementing our own version of React Redux. We did it for both Swift, and the library is called Katana. It is open source. I'll give you the links later. And we also implemented it for Flutter and called it Gunkan. As you can see, we are definitely not fans of Japan stuff. So, how does the human player work? Just as I said, a human player will press buttons on the UI. The buttons will trigger actions which will communicate through a server or change some information on the store. And the store will actually describe what the UI is going to look like. So the challenge that we want to solve after this is also how to effectively test our app to make sure that it can withstand the power of 200,000 users at the same time. Not just server-side, but also client-side. So what we did to actually test the application before sending it live is to create a bot player. What we did was replace the whole layer of UI of React and Redux so that there is a bot which at a very high level can read the store and trigger the same actions that would be triggered by a user by pressing on the buttons. So for example, it doesn't matter how you implement it, if it's an API call or a WebSocket or if there's any other kind of communication, because that logic actually is in the action. So the action that you trigger when you press the button is a simple answer with 1. It's that simple. So what we did is to create a very high-level bot which is actually capable of launching those actions based on the state of the store. And if you think about it, we even removed the whole UI layer, which means that this bot is also very lightweight and we can launch it as a command line interface. So we have this bot and we can launch hundreds of thousands of them, and they're very high level, and they're not just compatible with this version of the app, they will probably be compatible with all of the newer releases we're going to do of the same app. Even if we change how the client or the server communicate, the bot will not need probably any kind of maintenance at all. So we load up some servers on AWS and all of our scaling systems, and we can simulate 200, 300, 400,000 bots at the same time, which will actually use all of the code in our client to communicate with all of the code in our server. And this is the best way we found to test and scale our application. Alright, that's it. Do you have any questions? Was it a bit too technical? I don't know. Oh, an applause!
Okay, guys, it's a bit of a problem tonight with all this technical stuff. I don't know. Anyway, we have some questions here, but at the same time, you're very welcome to raise your hand if you want to ask something.
Even something very high level, like who writes the questions and stuff.
Well, this stuff is still loading. I cannot access the questions at the moment.
Go ahead, can you?
Yeah.
The backend in which language is implemented?
It's currently written in Python. We use Python a lot in Venice for backend development.
So you use some
Framework.
framework?
Yeah, we typically use Flask, but we also tried the other processes. One of the frameworks we tried was Sunny, which is a very new framework for Python 3, which uses tornado systems and async await for calls, and actually that's very outperforms Flask all the way. But we still ended up using Flask for all of its support, which is available in the community.
Thank you.
Okay, which is your stream of income with live quiz? More like money stuff. How can you make a revenue with so many expenses?
You wanna talk about it?
Go on.
So at first, on this is a very common question. They do it as all the time. At first, it was an investment. We wanted to have. It's a great investment for both branding reasons because it's a great app and it went viral and we kept investing in it so that it was used more and more by a lot of players. And people actually started wondering why people are doing it. We're doing it because we saw a huge market. The television actually does the same. It's not that different. You have a TV show, and they actually provide. They have all these quizzes where people go and they put like 150,000 euros per night, and nobody asks questions, right? But then you do something like pretty much similar on an app, and you actually do get the numbers of viewers because you see that there are more than 50,000 players a night, but we even got more than doubles on some nights. So what we do is actually display ads to people who play the game. We do have some ads which are displayed before the game and some which are between questions. And we're going to trying to find the sweet spot with that so that they're not too invasive and that there are not too many and that users like it. So we tried to integrate them as best as we can. But of course, live quiz is never going to be pay to win. You're never going to have to pay to participate. So that's it.
I'm just taking the mic from the president.
I'm just wondering, is it already profitable or is it still in investment phase?
So currently it would be profitable if we stop working in it. So it's a possibility that it would be a little bit, but it's just, there's a lot of work behind it because we have to make games every day and there's a lot of work in making sure the games aren't too easy or too difficult. So actually working on that, the amount of the compensation that the people that everyone is working on is actually a bit over the revenue that we get by ads. And that is the reason why we haven't increased the price, because we need to find the perfect sweet spot for advertisement. We are currently looking at other advertisement options so that we can probably get more money out of the ad space we have, because we have a tremendous ad space which is not used. And if we do that, then we're going to be very profitable. We're also thinking about expanding to other countries.
So we can sponsor you as Speck&Tech. Yeah.
Yeah, we paid like 10,000 grants for these questions.
Actually, one question was about that. So, who's actually coming up with the questions? Who's writing them down?
This is the second most common question that I get. Now, let's suppose that I give you a name. What do you do with it? Let's say that's an ad. No, I'm kidding. There's actually a whole team of people. It's not just one single person. There are how many? 3 or 4 people. 4 people currently working pretty much full time on the questions. It's actually a pretty hard problem to solve because there are a lot of features in the questions that are not obvious to the people who are playing. For example, some questions have to be designed in such a way that it's not possible to Google the answer. And the other questions have to be hard enough so that not many people guess it. Other questions have to be savage question, what you call it, which means that more than half users are supposed to get it wrong. Which are questions that are supposedly very easy, but then there's a trick behind it and there's something wrong.
Like Speck&Tech one. Yeah.
That actually wasn't a savage question. More than half people guessed it.
What do you do with users' data? Like answering the question, do you save it or sell it some way?
No, we don't sell data on anyone. We don't do anything like that. We currently only store the emails and the basic data like first name and last name. And currently the only way we use the data is to send emails to our users if there are some sponsorship. So for example, we did an Infinity sponsorship which they gifted 3 months, a gift code with 3 months of subscription for free, and we used that data to send that mail, but we did not send the data to Infinity, we just sent it ourselves.
Which security issues did you encounter so far?
No, not yet, but one of the reasons is that there are not many security issues because the client doesn't know the information, so the client basically is just a person who's playing.
Since the game configuration relies on timestamps, so is there some protection against incorrect system time?
Yes, we do have some synchronization call, which is MTP servers to synchronize all of the servers throughout each other. And they are very precise and they're capable of making sure that all the servers are lined up.
Do you ever ever had some kind of like sponsored questions? Like I don't know, like new Star Wars is coming out, and you have like a Star Wars question. Does it happen?
We actually offered that package, but so far we didn't sell any single sponsored question. We did sell sponsored games, like the whole game is sponsored with the team of the company that sponsored the game, but never for a single question. I know it seems that some questions might look sponsored, but it's because there's a reference to some company or some movie or something. It doesn't mean that they're paying us. It's just popular reference.
Okay, final question. Why did you choose to use Flutter rather than React Native?
Okay, so Flutter over React Native is a decision that took us actually a bit of thinking. The reason is because React Native actually delegates the rendering of the UI elements to the OS. So for example, you will have iOS render actually those buttons, and you will have Android rendering those buttons. And these two things can be in conflict with each other, so you might end up with a different view on iOS rather than Android. While Flutter actually rewrites completely the rendering and handles it itself with Dart. So this means that you will never have an incoherent system between iOS or Android, except for obviously the device sides. But besides that, that's the reason for consistency.
Final question, Gary asked one. What's the average salary for a spooner?
The average salary for a spooner, it depends on, it's actually, we have a whole section on our career page, which of course depends by the seniority and the degree of responsibilities and what the person do. But our salaries are among the top of Italy and are very generous, and you're welcome to see on the careers page to see
On Glassdoor as well. Yes.
There are a lot of deals there.
Right, thank you very much.
Thanks again.
We grieved you a little bit with very hard questions, so thank you very much for answering with such clarity. It was a pleasure to listen to all these things from the app and from your companies. Thank you very much for being here. Also, funny thing, we have Pedras tonight, which was one of the second speakers in Speck&Tech history ever.
And of course, it didn't play a role in getting Bendis as a sponsor.
No, it was this tall, I still remember it. I was 15 at the time, yes. And look at him now, with a brand new t-shirt. Good luck. Jokes aside, we're very happy to see you again. And as you can see, coming to Speck&Tech makes you more intelligent as veterans. So, yeah, I hope, I don't know, I'm not working with it directly, but I really hope that it's true. Alright, so if we are ready, we are. So, warm applause to Daniele, which is talking about Photonic Cloud. So, so we will be double the better, double the hardest questions, so be strong.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniele Ratti, CEO and founder of Photonic Cloud, which is the leader software as a service for invoicing in Italy. We do help small businesses and freelancers in Italy to better manage their company by generating invoices, registering expenses, and so on. I founded Photonic Cloud in 2013 when I was 21 years old and was going at the university. And until now, Photonic Cloud has always had a good growth rate, as you can see in this chart, which is going from December 2013 to October 2018. We have made in that period about 40,000 paying customers. But then the electronic invoicing came into effect in Italy from 1st January 2018, and we had that holistic jump. We passed from 35 paying customers to over 300,000 paying customers in just 2 months. And fortunately, all the past years in which we have worked on our infrastructure helped us to keep our uptime to about 99.99%. So we didn't have any downtime in that period, even if we made the necks of the users. I'll give you some tech numbers. We have about 350k paying customers. We do have like 80, 100 running instances simultaneously, and we have about 10 MySQL databases or Redis, and we handle about 110 million requests per day. There are about 88 million through our CDN, and about 22 million per day through, directly through our EC2 instances. Moreover, we also render about 1.5 million invoices per day, and I hope our customer doesn't read them. So it's very funny because it all started with this, a single database, a single dedicated server on OVH, in which we're running both the landing page, the platform, the database, and even the storage. I know it's not sexy, but probably it was the leanest way to start at that time with no users when I was going at the university and I didn't have any fund. Also, the code has been pushed via SFTP directly to the server, which is a very bad practice. And for this reason, the availability was like this one. So when we passed the first 1,000 customers, we decided to improve our infrastructure. So we started to move, for example, the storage outside our single server. We moved it through Amazon S3 in order to scale indefinitely. And secondary, we tried to move out from this dedicated server also the database. So we created a second instance dedicated only to the database, and the first one connects to the second one just to do queries. Thirdly, we divided all our infrastructure in different clusters. So we created an instance for the landing page, another one for the platform, another one for the background jobs like email sending or any other background stuff. And then we also moved our database from an instance to Amazon RDS, which is an Amazon managed database in order to get automated updates, restore points in time, and many more interesting features to improve our reliability. At that moment, I asked myself, how could we be more fault tolerant? I mean, at the time we've already divided in different clusters our infrastructure, but that was not enough at that time. So we started doing we started creating load balancer and auto-scaling groups that allowed us to scale horizontally the number of instances beneath a single cluster. And this is an example of chart of this morning. I think it's this morning, and it represents the last week. As you can see, for example, during the night and during the weekends, we only have 2 instances in this auto-scaling group, while during the day, specifically on the morning and in the afternoon, we have 2 peaks. That goes down, for example, during the lunchtime. If you're wondering why we're keeping a minimum number of 2 instances instead of 1, is because if that single one instance goes down for a given reason, we don't have downtime because it will be automatically regenerated if we have to. So we don't have downtime. Then we focused our attention on the static resources because, as you may remember in my first slide, about 88 million requests on 120 requests are passing through our CDN because it's all static resources like JavaScript, CSS, images, and so on. So we created several CDNs that points to our load balancers. And our question at the time was, okay, how could we version that JavaScript and that CSS file? And the answer seemed pretty simple. So we added a query string called version, in which is populated by the entity or by the checksum of that given file. We send it through our load balancer. Then the client asks it to the CDN that will miss it because maybe it's a new version, and ask the new version to the load balancer. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy when you handle millions of requests. Why? Let's take a step back to our old deployment system. It was very bad. Don't copy that. The new deployment system works like this. So when you push or when you merge a branch to master from our Git code base, Webhook will take a bit on Jenkins. Jenkins will create a package on Amazon S3 and upload it on Amazon S3. Then we will deploy that package via AWX, which is an open source version of Ansible Tower, to all the different EC2. And also, for example, newborn EC2 automatically fetch the latest package available on S3. Okay, but what could go possibly wrong with this system, with the CDN? It's pretty simple because, as you can see in this chart, when a build is ready and our AWX try to deploy it to our servers, the finished deploy time is not the same for each server. Maybe it can differ for a few milliseconds or maybe even for 1, 2, or 3 seconds. So, figure this situation. Our load balancer, our dynamic page loaded from our load balancer, route our request through an updated EC2. Our updated EC2 send to the client the new versioning code, okay? And the client asks to the CDN main.js with the latest version. Of course, the CDN have never seen that new version and miss the call, so miss the cache. So we'll ask it to the load balancer. But if in that specific moment there is an EC2 outdated and unfortunately the load balancer sends that request from the CDN to the EC2 outdated, the load balancer will send the old version of that JavaScript to the CDN. The CDN will cache it thinking that was the last one and sending it to the client and to the further request for like 5 minutes. Let's say it's 5 minutes the time to live of that CDN. So this was my face when I discovered that doesn't work that way. Our solution is pretty simple. First of all, we did an evaluation in order to create a full blue-green deployment, but it was too slow for our process. So we decided to create a very, very simple system that basically saves the time, the exact time of the finishing, when you just finish the build, and add a padding, let's say 1 minute, because we statistically know that a deployment will last like 20 seconds, 15 seconds, and so on. So we will add a padding of 1 minute, and then this information will be packaged together with the build. So every time an instance gets deployed, it doesn't change actually the code until this point is reached, which is calculated as the build time plus 1 minute, let's say. In this way, at the same time, since the clocks are synchronized of our EC2, the deploy came into effect. And in this way, we resolved it in a very simple way, our problem, and I can say that it works very good. This is a very simplified version of our current infrastructure. As I told you before, the client requests go through group balancer. In reality, there is also another layer which is composed of the web application firewall. Then they pass through autoscaling groups, and it goes down to the ET2, which are the ones that can communicate with the MySQL, with the SMTP servers, and so on. In reality, this is a very simplified version of our infrastructure because the real infrastructure is like this one. So we have 40 clusters in Factoring Cloud which do many jobs like creating backup for our customers, generating invoices, generating XML invoices, sending them to the public administration, and so on. Okay, until now I told you about scaling instances, about scaling storage, but we had to face the final monster. Yeah, here you have a hint about who is the final monster, which is the database, of course. And specifically, we faced different issues, and we tried to achieve different goals with the database. First of all, the reliability, because the database is our single point of failure. Specifically, our main database is very important, and if it goes down, everything goes down. Secondly, the scaling, because even for the database, like what's happening with the instances, we can have peaks of users, and for example, in the night we don't have requests, so we have very few requests. Then we faced another important problem, which is altering tables on very big tables. I'm talking about like 100 billion rows, dozens of gigabytes, and so on. And it's a critical thing. And lastly, how to do a strong peer analysis for strong peer optimization. So I will tell you what we found useful for us, and I hope it would be useful for everyone. First of all, we created a master version of our database, which is the one where we do insert, update, and delete, and several slaves, which are read replicas. In this way, we can decouple write and read operations, and we can subdivide the workloads on different instances, so on different CPUs and on different RAM, even if they rely on the same storage. And secondly, we have enabled the auto-scaling in order to reduce the probability of failure, and we can scale the number of read replicas up to 15. So the real bottleneck now became only the write instance, since the read replicas can be automatically created by Amazon based on our rules, of course, which are based on, for example, CPU utilization. And I show you in this chart an example of this morning. I took this screenshot at 11 this morning. As you can see, the orange line is the write, the master of our database, while the green line is a read replica. The single read replica until that moment, until about 10 AM. As you can see, the read replica goes beyond 50% of the CPU usage. For this reason, after 5 minutes beyond 50%, Amazon automatically triggered a second read replica, which is this one, blue, this line blue. And as you can see, the average CPU for the reading cluster passes from about 50-55% to 2 instances with 25% each. The second thing we've done is to create specific users per cluster and enable performance insight. This is very useful because we can identify exactly where the slow queries come from. For example, we can see that the cluster fix secure is using like 65–70% of our database load. And secondly, we can also identify which clusters are using more resources. This is, for example, a screenshot that shows us which are the slowest query in our database, and these colors are also related to. These colors are also related to the given cluster. So we can see in a second which is the cluster that generated that query. Then, once we have found, for example, a bottleneck, once we have found, for example, that a given cluster is consuming too much resources, we can go deeper. In this example, we're using New Relic in order to better understand inside a given cluster which are the classes, which are the methods that are most called and that are most consuming. Moreover, we are also using Redis for query caching, and not only. It works in a very, very simple way. For example, when you do a select, which don't have to be in real time, we try to ask our Redis instance if there is a ready that select and it's still valid. So let's say we've set a time to live of 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes. If that given query has already been done in the previous 5 minutes, we just get the results from Redis and don't do it really on the database. Otherwise, we will do actually the query on the database and save the result on Redis for that given TTL. And this approach is very interesting where you don't have real-time queries. So if you don't mind to give an outdated response for like 60 seconds, 5 minutes or more, you can use this approach, which is very, very useful. Then the big problem, altering big tables. We tried different approach, and then the final one we found very useful is to use Percona Toolkit, which is the best solution we found so far. And here is what happened when you try to alter table with Percona Toolkit. It creates a new temporary table. It adds 3 triggers, one for insert, one for delete, and one for the updates to the previous table, to the original table, in order to automatically reflect all the new changes to the temporary table. Then it copies chunk by chunk all the contents from the original table to the new table, and then optionally delete your table and atomically switches the name of the 2 tables in order to get the result expected. I've also done a simple benchmarking in order to understand how does that mechanism works. And I tried this benchmarking on a quite big instance, 235 gigabytes of RAM, and before I tried to alter directly a table with algorithm in place, and the speed was like 40 megabytes per second, but this is really unsafe with workload in production. Then I tried another algorithm, which is the algorithm copy, much safer, and the speed was 23.8 megabytes per second. And lastly, we tried to use Percona Toolkit in order of the operation. And finally, we discovered that Percona Toolkit is quite slower. The speed was like 6 megabytes per second. And the CPU goes up of about 6%, but even if it's like 6.5 or 4 times lower respect the alter table, is more predictable and safe to do this. So we're using this algorithm because we can, for example, we can stop it without any problem. We can roll back it, and it's all the system is always in a predictable state. Lastly, I finished my presentation and I have just 3 curiosities. about Factoring Cloud. The first one is that we have a time machine to roll back in seconds. Because something happens that we push something in production that crashes everything to our customers unexpectedly. So we have the possibility to skip all the building system that I showed you before and to go directly through AWX by pushing, let's say, the latest or a billion previous version of the builds, and it goes up like in 5-10 seconds in production to all users. Secondly, we know the average lunch time thanks to auto scaling, which is, by the way, at 1:30 p.m. And third, we are a very competitive team, and in fact this year we managed to place first in Italy and 22nd all over the world in the Google App Store. And lastly, also we are hiring if you're interested.
Thank you very much for the lunch insight. That was the best part. It's not, Trento is not like that. We're more like 11:49-ish. So some questions. Sometimes 11:56. But the first question is in Italian, but I will translate because it's kind of fun. So they're saying kind of like this is the first time the Italian law have been in favor of someone. How much were you happy when you discovered about fatturazione elettronica?
Very, very, very happy.
All right. So another question is, hello from a happy Factoring Cloud customer here. Please release the new version of the APIs.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
He knows very well.
Yeah. So another one, which I don't know, guys. Is it blockchain already a meme or? Sorry, I had to say. So they're saying, have you ever considered blockchain as a possible solution for the architecture of your service? I have no idea why this is asking, since it's super non-efficient, but you should reply.
No, we don't anyway.
Yeah.
At least for the architecture.
Yeah. So now is why didn't you use NoSQL? I mean, we're talking about performance.
Well, actually, doesn't make so much sense NoSQL, at least for the whole Factoring Cloud. Maybe just for some parts it could have, but all our data are relational, so there is no strong reason to use a NoSQL database.
Alright.
Since
So
we work with relational data like invoices, it's a very structured data relation.
So good luck with doing this big index with NoSQL. How long does it take to build and deploy a new artifact of the application?
It takes like 1 minute, 30 seconds to build on Jenkins, and then like 20 seconds to deploy. But as I told you before, there is a padding, so from total 1 minute, 2 minutes plus 1 minute, like 3 minutes. So from the push to master to the production, it's like 3 minutes.
All right. Next question is, are you planning to do a redesign of the desktop version?
We do, yeah, we are already doing it.
Yeah, I heard it. Okay.
We can prove it.
Yeah, but there is also people from the design team that are kind of involved in that. So again, do you use any tool for testing and security testing?
There is a company that helps us with security. They do at least 2 security assessments per year.
Right. Well, that's an interesting one. How do you get all the knowledge required to build the entire infrastructure? Like, did you have like some consultants? Did you just Google it?
Actually, I tried on myself. I tried, destroyed, retried, destroyed, and so on.
Right.
And of course with some articles on Medium or tech articles.
But it was all in-house then.
Yeah,
Oh.
in-house.
Alright. And then the last one is, will Julia read every question? Yes. Alright, thank you very much, Daniele. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Okay, not much left to say, honestly, apart from input 5 numbers.
Oh,
yeah. So no, thanks for the night. How sweaty are you?
yeah, this is now Speck&Tech.
Yeah. Also, I noticed some of you are very sweaty, so you can go there and buy a new t-shirt.
Yeah, they're 100% cotton, so it doesn't stink.
I made a terrible mistake to actually buy one before the event, and now I'm gonna throw it away and buy a new one.
You can buy a new one, yes, of course.
They're super fair trade anyway, very transparent. I honestly, I'm not sweating, I promise. You can comment as need me later on. But apart from this, we are planning to have an event in July to wrap up the year.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But we still don't know where, which is actually quite a point. Apparently not here, or probably not in this.
Why? Here is so cozy, so warm, right?
Okay, so just stay tuned on our social media, follow our channels, let us know if you want to contribute somehow, if you have ideas of people to invite to any of our events. Last event in July, if we don't see each other, enjoy the summer break, and we come back also in September. Leave a donation there at the table. In the other room, where now it's like freezing, more or less, there are some very cold beers and some fake